Great, thank you. My name is Michael T. Stack, and I am with TV Fanatic, and it is lovely to meet you, and it's great to be here.
Awesome.
So let's jump right into it. How did you feel about returning to a show you hadn't been with for almost 10 years?
Yeah, it was a real mix of emotions. At first, I think all of us could agree it was kind of that question of, really? Should we? Like just sort of looking amongst each other and wondering, is this what we want to do? Is this a good idea? Is this the right time? I know that was a big question too. And I think when it got to the point that we finally determined what the show was going to be about and where we were going to find ourselves and how the characters had changed, those questions really turned to a lot of excitement. And we felt ready to just get on set and start doing these things again. And by the time we actually got together, I was continuously surprised at how much it felt like no time had really passed. It really did seem like we were just putting on a fuzzy old blanket that we had all just sat under for the last decade, and getting back together was very natural for the three of us, but also fortunately and luckily for us, for the new voices on our show, for Jaden Triplett, who plays Millicent, and Lacey Mosley, who plays Harper, they assimilated into our group so insanely fast. It just felt like this group of people was just kind of meant to be. And we felt great about being with each other, and it has felt so exciting to bring something new, and we've really collaborated a lot on putting this together. So it was a big mix, but now that we're kind of on the other side of it and we're wrapping up the first season, we're just so excited. We can't wait for people to see it, and it seems like the reaction's been pretty good from the trailer and from what people have seen so far. So we're hoping that continues, that people enjoy it as much as we enjoyed making it.
That's great. Yeah, no, I grew up with the show, and
Me too.
So excited for, well, of course, that actually perfectly leads into my next question.
Yeah.
So how did it feel playing an adult character of a character you played when you were growing up?
It was really interesting because when we first started the show, that was the new show. My first question was, so how do I Freddy? How do I be that guy? Because so much time has passed, and he's experienced a lot of life, and he's had some rough things happen to him, and and especially just the tone of the show is different. It was a kid's show before. It was very broad. It was a Nickelodeon show. It had a very specific tone to it, and knowing that we were going to be doing an adult show, figuring out how to find that line was an interesting question. And then finally, I guess I just kind of realized, by the end of the original show, I was basically just being myself for the most part and saying things how I would say things. And I, as Nathan, have aged 9 years and find myself here. So has Freddy. And I guess I'm kind of the only person who would really be able to say with much conviction how he would be and how he would say things and how he would approach things, at least in terms of day-to-day performance of the lines, because that was such a big question for me at the beginning, and such an interesting paradigm shift as we were getting started. But I think once I realized it's okay to have aged myself and bring Freddy along with me and use that to inform how he is now, because there are so many parallels. He's a dad, I'm a dad. Granted, he's at a very different phase of dadhood. He fast-forwarded to the feisty tween phase. I'm at least enjoying toddlerhood and newbornness. So I'm learning a lot from him, mostly of what not to do, of how not to be a dad to an 11-year-old. But even that part has just been so fun to enjoy, seeing Freddy in a situation that I never really would have thought that I'd see him in, at least at this phase in his life. And I think that's going to be fascinating for the fans to be able to see too.
Definitely, and I'm really excited to see that. So would you say that was like, were you surprised by anything? Like, were you surprised that they made Freddy a father, like, in the script? Like, yeah.
I think the whole premise of getting the call and saying, yeah, so we're thinking, you're in your late 20s, but you're twice divorced. You did a startup, it totally failed. You lost everything. Your exes took everything in the divorce. You're left with absolutely nothing. You're at rock bottom. You're living with your mother, and you somehow adopted your stepdaughter from your previous marriage because you're just such a good guy and you wanted her to have a stable life while her mom is, traveling the world, making the world a better place for her work. And I kind of just sat there, was like, okay, why not? Sure, like that. When I had done interviews in the past, and they said, so where do you think Freddie is? I had, my affinity for Freddie, my connection to him, wanted him to have a happy ending. So my natural thing was, well, he's become an entrepreneur. He's in tech. He's the next Steve Jobs. He's off, starting up companies and, having the best life. That was with the assumption that we weren't coming back and that was just his happily ever after. And that was where I wanted to see him. But turns out your 20s can lead to a lot of your happily ever after being derailed a little bit, as we've seen in the last few years. And now maybe that is Freddie's arc. Maybe he ends up in a good place, but that's just not where we see him in the first season. And I think as an actor, that's particularly juicy for me. Even being on a multi-camera sitcom, there's a lot of places to go as a character, and with his relationship with his daughter, with his relationship with Carly and Spencer and Harper, with his relationship with his work and with money. And there's a whole lot for him to kind of uncover in this phase of life. And I think what's cool about it is because this show was tailor-made for the people who were fans of the show when they were young, and now they've moved along with us, they get to enjoy watching people in this universe that they know and love go through a lot of the same things that they're going through the lens of how much internet culture has changed and how real that is, because iCarly was so internet forward. I didn't really realize until I got onto set just how much story there is left to start at this point and see where these characters go and where this story goes. And that's what I think has been so great, is it just seems almost infinite in the way that the internet, is infinite. It's really exciting.
I really like that. And speaking of like your relationships with thing, how do you think your relationship, not just with the actors, but like Freddie's relationship with like Carly, has evolved since the finale in 2012?
Well, obviously when she went off to Italy, Freddie went off and just fell right off a cliff. I don't think we fully established what the timeline is of when his marriages occurred. I know that the second marriage ended relatively recently. I think about a year by the time we watched the first episode. That's how long he's been divorced. So a lot of stuff has happened, but I think what's cool is, even though, Carly's gone off and had her own journey, Spencer has become this prolific artist and stayed in his apartment, but he has this big fantabulous life now. And Freddie, went off, tried to leave the roost, and then ended up right back with Mother Hen, Mrs. Benson. I think the fact that you find them all still best friends and loving each other and being around each other every day and coming over, still not even bothering to knock on the door, just coming right in and pouring themselves a cup of coffee. You get the sense that life has happened, but their relationship really has not changed in any fundamental way. And what's so cool is how much that reflects our lives. Like we would still see each other on and off. We would still go try and have dinner and have the "Where Are We Now" conference, and every once in a while, I'd have people over and we'd see each other at events and everything. That would happen, but for the most part, we had kind of a alone time in our different parties. But as soon as we came together on this set, it was just like done. It's just everything is the world is right again. We're all together, we're all doing this, but we're doing it in a new and fun and different way. It really has been kind of the best of both worlds, getting to do this show, but then also know that I'm doing it with people that I just love working with, and a new crop of talent that is phenomenal, a crew that's great. It's just been a win-win.
That's great. I love to hear that. And I'm honestly so excited for the show, and I'm so excited to get to cover it. And thank you so much for your time. This
Awesome.
was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure talking with you. Have a good one.
Pleasure to talk to you too.